Just just kind of wanted to thank everyone here for joining. I'm sure that there'll be lots of more people to be let in, and obviously then we'll pass over to Noona. So like a few house rules, if that's okay. If everyone keep their mics off, that would be great. Noona lives in Dubai, but she grew up in Oxford, I think, and she has clients globally. For those who don't know her, she's like lovely, warm, motherly, but obviously that doesn't mean like she's anyone's fool. She works with CEOs and senior execs and really just like help support each of them because obviously like at the top it's very lonely, but along the way too it's quite lonely, and if you fall you need to obviously get back up. No one wants to see anyone do that. So um and that applies to all sort of industries, whether it's property, law, finance, construction, music. Like that climb is so hard. And of course, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but there's been sort of like a spate of sort of incidents across like the C-suite and across accountancy companies on like a global scale. Because like the stress can be really like overwhelming, and it seeps down, and it's just really quite awful. And of course, like mental health issues have been around for centuries, and whilst we've improved our understanding and awareness of them, we've obviously got to recognize certain triggers in our behavior and in others, and manage teams much better than we have done in the past, and much better going forward, so that we will have a better work-life balance and families. And I think my first manager was Sophie Warner at Ipswich Town, and which was where I waitressed in the hospitality box. And I think she later moved to Fulham, if I'm correct. And she was just a really great manager. She was sort of approachable, sensible, like fair and fun, and she appreciated the hard work. And I think she really kind of set a great tone of what a great manager should be. It was definitely a great place to work, and Ipswich Town Football Club is like a fantastic family club. The sort of players are great, and then it's kind of for those who don't know it, it's like a great day out. Like there's definitely a big buzz. So I think everyone's sort of very aware that Ed Sheeran kind of comes from Ipswich, and how great Julie is for the sort of town and the county. So I think I just think that it's necessary to have like diversity within teams, and Noona certainly like brings that ability to show how important that is in her management style. So on that sort of note, I just want to pass over to Noona so she can obviously help us all be that little bit better.
So yeah, thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for inviting me to set up this workshop. What we're going to discuss today is something that we all struggle with, stress. And as a leader, when we're stressed, it can bring out the worst in us. And I always say when emotions are high, intelligence is low. We're going to be talking about what happens to us when we're stressed. How can we manage our own emotions when we're stressed? And then what I'm going to be talking about is how can we deal with stress so that we know how to deal with our team, because there is nothing worse than having somebody in the team who is bringing everyone else down, and we don't know how to manage them. We don't know how to bring out the worst. So you're in for a treat. And yeah, let's get started. So I'm just going to start and share my screen over here. Perfect. Event. Okay. So leading under stress, I think this is a really hot topic. And how can we deal with team dynamics and still feel really great about who we are? Now, before I start, I want to start with this analogy of a lemon. If I squeezed this lemon, what is going to come out? You can pop it in the chat if you like. Lemon juice. There is no way if I squeeze this lemon, would I get apple juice? Would I get orange juice? What I'm going to squeeze when I squeeze this lemon is clearly lemon juice. And that is exactly, it's a really beautiful analogy for us when we're under stress. When we are under stress, whatever is inside us, when we squeeze it, will come out. So many of us feel that when we're under stress, sometimes we think that it might bring out the best in us. That only works if we understand how to manage ourselves properly. Because most of the time, when we're really under stress, like a lemon, what comes out? Something a bit bitter and something that is quite sour. And this is true of our team as well. So if we want to manage a team in a way that when they're under stress, we know how to bring out the best in them, the first thing that we need to do is learn how to bring out the best in ourselves when we're under stress. So we can only lead our teams, and we can only take our teams to the extent that we take ourselves. And that is why I am so passionate about this work. I don't think there is enough leadership training that really, yes, you can go and learn strategy. You can go and learn how to read an Excel spreadsheet and how to do all the accounts and all of that. That is all really, really important. If you are a leader, if you are a CEO, if you are managing people, yes, you need to be able to read all of these spreadsheets and you need to be able to know the profit margins and all of this. Yes, that's great. That strategy is completely pointless if we do not know how to lead ourselves. And the way that you know if you're leading yourself properly is, who are you when things go wrong? Who are you when there's team dynamics which are not particularly great, when your team are under stress, when they're not hitting targets, when your hiring has not worked, when you've hired someone then they've left, when two people in the team have left? Like, who are you then? That is really what self-leadership is about. Self-leadership for me is, how can you lead yourself in really, really tough times? And a lot of the training that I do with corporates and with CEOs is not training when things are good, because honestly, we all know when things are going really great, and my husband says, it's really easy to love you when you're in a good mood. The thing is, can you find someone who's going to love you when you're in a really bad mood? And that is the same as the team. If we all want to be led by people who are able to lead themselves, and if you look back at the bosses that you've had, the greatest ones are the ones that when they're under stress, they take that stress away from you. But unfortunately, there is a really big gap in the training that we give, not just to leaders, but I actually think for everybody, even for when I look at my children, what they're learning in school, we're not taught how to manage our emotions. We're not taught how to deal with stress. And so this is going to be a really beautiful workshop. We might be more than an hour, but we are going to send a recording. I really don't want to rush through this because there's some really, really big concepts I'm going to be covering on self-leadership and on how to lead your team. So I think it's really important to just say that, yes, we can only take our team as far as we can take ourselves. And that is where I come in with my company. So I am Noona. I am the CEO of a company called noona, which means new light. And we are a coaching and leadership consultancy. And what we do is we work with CEOs on a one-to-one basis, and we also go into companies and do leadership training. I developed my own C3 CEO method, which is all about connection, confidence, and communication. It's all about, how do we connect to ourselves? How much confidence do we have? How do we even communicate to ourselves? Because the more that you are able to have a deeper connection with yourself, to have that inner self-confidence, that even when you're sat in the boardroom and people don't like your idea, when you're around really senior people, when you're with a team who may not particularly, when you have to make really difficult decisions, if you can stick to your confidence and still hold yourself and speak up and make all these difficult decisions, you're going to be a much better leader. And communication really comes down to, how do you communicate to yourself? And you will be surprised at the amount of CEOs that I work with who are, working and running Fortune 500 companies, but the way they speak to themselves when they're alone, if they spoke to anyone else like that, they would not have anyone report into them. We wouldn't have any friends if we spoke to people the way we speak to ourselves. So it's really important for us to lead, to look at this and to look at, what's the connection that we have with ourselves? The people who I see who are running their teams beautifully and excellently are the people who can develop a really, really deep relationship with themselves, who can hold themselves when things go wrong, who can deal with their own sadness, their own anger, their own disappointment, because they don't make it mean anything about them. So that's a little bit about who I am. And what you're really going to walk away with today is, as I said, it's something that you probably wouldn't have learnt, because no one else is teaching this the way that I am. I'm going to be teaching you the thought model. And when I started learning the thought model, I still use it today. It's completely changed my life. And I'm really excited to walk you through that. It's really about how to create emotions, how our emotions create our results, and in life, how our thoughts create our results. And if we do not know how to manage our thoughts, which a lot of us don't, we're not getting the right results, not just from us, but from our team as well. It's really good for team motivation as well. If you want to motivate someone, you have to motivate them from their thoughts and their emotions, not by setting more KPIs, which what a lot of us do. But that's how motivation works. We're also going to be talking about what it is that actually allows, why do our team get stressed? Why do they react the way they react? And why do they react differently? Why does one person play the victim where another person just closes up? What's going on there? You're going to really learn about that today. And then we're going to talk about the different archetypes. This is based on Carl Jung's work. He'll bring his book so you can have a look. This is from this book here. It's actually a really beautiful book. He has 54, I think it's 54 or 48 archetypes in this book. I've based them down to 8 because I think these are the most common ones that come up at work. So if anyone's like me who's obsessed with the human mind, which I am, and really into psychology, I'm going to save you reading this book. It's quite a big book, but it's really what he's done, and the way that I've brought this into work dynamics really lends itself quite beautifully to learning how to manage people under pressure. The whole point of when people are under pressure, we want to be there for them. We want to get them out of this stress, and we want to get them to perform better so that they can, obviously for all of us, make more profit. And a company that's going to make profit is a company that knows how to manage the people really effectively. So we will be looking at all of this stuff. All right, okay, so let's have a look. So there is only one thing that we can control in this world, and can anyone drop me in the chat what you think that might be? What is the one thing that we can control? Ourselves. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, ourselves, how we react. And what is the one thing that we think we don't have control over? And we just think it happens? Our emotions. There's one before our anger. Yeah, but where does our anger come from? Our emotions. Yeah, there's one before that. Thoughts. Yes, Harriet. It's our thoughts. We have that, I think it's between 60,000 to 90,000. They haven't got the exact number. We have between 60 and 90,000 thoughts a day. Can anyone guess how many of those thoughts are repetitive? If you were to give me a percentage, what percentage of our thoughts are repetitive thoughts that we have at the same time? 50%, more than that. 5%, so much more than that. 80, actually a lot more than that, James. 90, Vivian, you're very close. 95% of our thoughts every day are the same. And when I teach you this model of how to manage our thoughts, you will be shocked, because what this shows you is, do you know how you have a new year and you're like, this year's my year, something new is going to happen. And then, you know, it's April, end of April, nearly May, and it's the same year as last year. Learning this model has, honestly, I can see a difference every year in how I've changed. And my husband makes a joke saying he's had 10 wives because we've been together for 13 years. And I've changed so much throughout our relationship purely because I've managed to change my thoughts. I've managed to control my thoughts. And 85% of our thoughts are negative. Not because there's anything wrong with us, because that's how our brain is wired. So a lot of people do call me the brain trainer, because I do train people on how to use their brains. And again, you'd be surprised how many of us don't know how to use our brains. So if 95% of our thoughts are repetitive, 85% of them are negative. So no wonder day by day, we think today's going to be better. Today's going to be a great day. And then by the end of the day, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're nearly burnt out. Today's going to be a great day. And then you have a great day. And by the end of the week, the same thing happens, because we're not taught how to control our thoughts. And yes, you were right, our thoughts. And I love this statement so much because what we don't control controls us. If we are not able, is that from nature or nurture? A bit of both, but I actually do think it's nurture. You can really train yourself to think differently. And I'm a really good example of that. I used to really play the victim, and it really served me to play the victim. My boss wouldn't give me enough promotions, and I get promoted, and then I'll be into a director role, and my team are this or my team are that. And it was so easy for me to blame everyone. And it was quite difficult to take real radical responsibility for my own emotions, because it's so much easier to blame everyone else. But nothing's more freeing than knowing that you're in control. You're in control of your own thoughts, your own actions, your noble results, because it means that no one else can make me angry. And sometimes I want to be angry, love. I just want to say I'm no monk. I definitely have a temper on me, but it's my anger and I own it. And I can't blame anyone for it. As much as I would love to control everyone in my life, I can't. And it's hard enough trying to control yourself, honestly. It's hard enough trying to change. It takes a lot of work, but it is possible. And what we don't control us, so if we don't control our thoughts, which are 80% negative, they're controlling us. If we don't know how to control our own emotions when a team member comes to us who's messed up, who's made a mistake, where budgets are wrong, logistics has made a mistake. If we don't know how to control those emotions, then those emotions are controlling us. And there's nothing worse than seeing someone who's angry and they've let that control the situation. Like I said, when emotions are high, intelligence are low. So this is what we're going to cover today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the thought model. And this is where the thought model comes from. Now, we're going to start with saying there are circumstances in your life. A circumstance is something that you can't argue in the court of law. I am a mother, I am married, I live in Dubai, I'm presenting it to all you lovely people here who've taken the time to be here. That is a circumstance. The circumstance is you are on a masterclass. Now, what happens is we have thoughts about every circumstance in our life. We have thoughts about that. And most of the thoughts that we have are unintentional. We just let them happen. Now, the way we feel about things in our life, the way we feel about our partners, the way we feel about our children, about our money, about our teams, about our job title, the way we feel about them is all triggered by a thought. And we cannot take action unless we have the right feelings. And this is where we go wrong a lot when we're managing our staff, is that we give them more KPIs and we think that's going to motivate them, or we give them more bonuses, or we give them more whatever it is. But actually, if you can't drive the right emotion in your team, you are not going to get the right results. You have to learn, and everyone is driven by different emotions. And this is why management, I think, are doing something wrong, that we're not teaching leaders how to fit with their own emotions, how to manage their own emotions so that they can understand how to manage other people's emotions. If I can't deal with my anger, which I can, I'm very good at dealing with my anger, I will not be able to deal with the anger of my children. Now, has anyone here got kids? Drop me a 1 in the chat if you do. If anyone here has got kids, yes. What is it like when your children scream and shout and have an absolute tantrum? It can be really dysregulating to your nervous system when you've been at work all day, mine's 23, maybe they won't have tantrums anymore. Mine's 10 and 8. And when they have tantrums, it really dysregulates your nervous system. It can publicly so embarrassing. It is really difficult to stay calm. But if you can handle your own anger, when your children have a tantrum, you can manage it better, because you're not your body is able to deal with it. And this is a mistake that so many of us in the work environment make, is that we don't want to feel our anger, we don't want to feel our stress, we don't want to feel being disappointment, all we want to do is just feel happy. Well, if that's the case, when we have a team member, if we have a leader who isn't able to deal with their own anger, sadness, disappointment, when someone comes at work and says, I'm really disappointed I didn't get a pay rise, rather than getting curious about it, they'll get angry because they can't deal with the person's disappointment. So it's like, get out my office. You should be so grateful. Not because there's anything wrong with us as humans. There's nothing wrong with that leader. They just haven't had the right leadership training to learn how to manage their own emotions. So it's very, very important to learn how to manage our own emotions, how to create these emotions in our staff so we can get the right results. Because that is the only way that you are going to motivate your team. It is not through bonus. And I am an ex-headhunter. I was a headhunter for 22 years. I would recruit for CEOs, an executive headhunter. And I can tell you that when I would interview CEOs, it was the ones who had really high emotional intelligence, who could deal with their emotions, who could deal with the stress in an interview, who got the job, not necessarily the ones who had the greatest CV. There were people who had amazing CVs and under interviews that they would crumble. They couldn't allow themselves to deal with their own emotions. So essentially, our thoughts create our results. So if you're not getting the right results from your team, what do you want to do? You want to look at their thoughts. If you're not getting the right results in your life, you want to look at how your thoughts are. How do you feel every day? Our identity is created through the thoughts that we have, the feelings that we have, and the actions that we take, because that creates the result, which is our identity. If you want to change your identity, or change the identity of your business, or change the identity of your team, you have to get them to think differently, to feel differently, and then they will act differently. Okay? If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. Let me know if I'm going too fast. These might be big concepts, but I like to think I'm breaking them down in ways that we get them. So let's do this in an example. Okay. So like I said, there's unintentional and intentional thoughts. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come out of here and I'm going to go into a, can everyone see that? Into a document. Yeah, can everyone see that? Everyone can see my Word document? Yes, okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Right, so let's start with a really simple example, because I always think it like simplify these concepts so we can really get them. So let's say it's the new year and I want to go to the gym. So let's say the circumstance is going to the gym or wanting to lose weight. Okay, so what are some of the thoughts that you've ever had or you think someone might have if they want to go to the gym and they want to lose weight and they're not really the best type of thoughts? Because I'll tell you, one of my thoughts is, can you zoom in slightly? Yes, let me do that. Thank you so much. Let's zoom in. Is that better? Yeah, that's better. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's say, what are the thoughts? So the thoughts that I sometimes have when I can't be bothered is, I can't be bothered. And what other thoughts would you have when you're not really feeling it's too hard? Love that. Too hard. Anything else that you might be having? Too hard. Mine is, I can't be bothered. The motivation, this is pointless. Motivation is a feeling. What's for dinner? I love that. Yeah, okay. So these are the thoughts tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. Okay. So these are the thoughts that we're having about going to the gym. Now, if we are thinking it's too hard, I can't be bothered, this is pointless, how do you think you will be feeling? How will you feel when you are thinking about that? Because for me, flat, yeah, flats. What emotion though? What emotion? Because flat's like, is that an emotion? Guilty. Guilty is an emotion. Negative. What is the negative emotion? Disappointment. Disappointment. Spelling. Sorry, I'm trying to type too fast. disappointment, upset with yourself, frustration, regret. For me, it's really unmotivated, feeling like a loser, failure. Yeah, all of those things. So we're thinking that, okay? From those emotions of feeling guilty, feeling disappointed, feeling unmotivated, what actions are you going to take about going to the gym? Because no action is still an action. You won't go, which is still an action. Or change of thought, or you'd go and do a really awful workout. And the thing is, this is the thing with motivation. Most of us white knuckle through it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go. Yeah, but dress for the part, you've had a different thought there, James. Once you've dressed for the part, your thought is, I'm just going to get dressed and go. There's a completely different thought. Distract with something else. Or you go and you do an awful workout, or you're not going to work out as hard, okay? So, not work out as hard, right? Start workout at home. You could start a workout at home, but then you've just paid for your gym membership. Okay, so then that's the action. So the result is stop eating. That's very difficult because I love my food. And the result is that you're not going to lose weight, or you're not going to go as much. So can you see how it's just our thoughts? Count those calories. It's just our thoughts. Our thoughts are responsible for how we feel. So if you want your team to feel motivated, if you want them to feel motivated, you need to understand what their thoughts are about the money that they're earning. You need to understand what their thoughts are about the project. Because I can tell you, with the next headhunter, people don't move just for money. I've headhunted people who I've offered them 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds or whatever it is more. They loved their job so much they wouldn't leave. So I had to get into their thoughts. What is it that they think about it? And do they think that this other company? Now, this is the thing where we are all going wrong with managing our teams. We're not going to the thought, because then they're not taking the right action. So this unintentional thought is what is happening to us on a daily basis. If you are having an argument with your partner, what are the thoughts you're having about what they said? And I can tell you, it's most likely not going to be something that is going to make you feel loving towards them. Most of the time, our thoughts is what is getting in the way. If we go to intentional thought, so the circumstance stays the same, okay? What thoughts would you have that would make you feel really motivated about going to the gym? Mine normally are, it's just 30 minutes. I just have to go for 30 minutes. And then once I'm in the gym, I feel really motivated. And that really, really helps me. What kind of thoughts would help you? Just give me a couple that would really make you feel, thinking about the benefits. Yeah, can't wait to look really good in this. I'll feel better if I go. Yeah, great. So feel better if I go. Yeah, save money, not having to buy a whole new wardrobe. Feel really good after. Exactly. So when you have those thoughts, you are going to feel more motivated. Seeing a partner, yeah. You're going to feel more motivated. The action that you will take is you're more likely to go. You'll feel positive. You'll feel entity. You're more likely to go. So you're going to do a good workout. That's the action. Give yourself a treat. Yeah, love that. So that's the action. And then the result is you're much more likely to go the next day. And you're much more likely to stick. So lose weight. Okay. Now, why am I teaching you this when I'm teaching you about team dynamics? Because this is the thing. Before we even start having a conversation with our team, we need to clean up our own thoughts. We need to clean up the thoughts that we are having about a team member. So you can use this, and I'm going to send you a workbook after this workshop that is very, very detailed that will explain this, because you can start this anywhere You can start this anyway. So say, for example, the result that I was looking for, and this is more in the intentional, the result that I wanted to look for is I wanted to create a $10 million business. Okay. I wanted to create a $10 million business. This is a great way to motivate your team. If I wanted to create a $10 million business, what are all the actions that I need to take? Well, I need to be more visible. I need to do more marketing. I need to grow my team. There are so many actions that I need to take if I want a $10 million business. Now, how do I need to feel about my business? I need to feel excited, motivated. What thoughts do I need to do that? It's really easy to make 10 million. My services are great. People love my business. There's no one doing it like I can. I'm the best leadership trainer there is. Those are the thoughts. Now, if I have thoughts of no one's going to pay me, that's not going to help me feel motivated. And I do this for every time I want to take my business to the next step. I look at the results that I want, what action I need to take, how I want to feel, and my thoughts, because this will be the number one blocker. So before you have a conversation with your team, before you deal with the team dynamic that is stressful, you need to clean up your own thoughts. Okay, so I'd love someone into chat to give me a circumstance about a situation that have come up with a team member where you may have not reacted in the best way. I can come up with one of mine as well, but I do love it when we're a bit more interactive, and you guys have been amazing, so thank you. Tell me about a situation that has come up in a team. So we will talk about a circumstance. Maybe two team members have started arguing, or somebody has created or it could be a difficult client or whatever. Does someone want to give me one, or would you like me to come up with one? We're all friends now. Okay, let me come up with one. And there's one that I got from another workshop, okay, where the circumstance was team member missing deadlines. Great. Thank you so much, Jessica. So team member missing deadlines. Now, if a team member does not want to delegate, okay, we'll get into that one too. I'll do two. That's perfect. So a team member missing deadline, that is in the court of law. You cannot argue with that. That's a circumstance, okay? What would your thought be, the first thought of a team member missing deadlines? That's unintentional thought, and we can all be really honest. What would you think? What kind of thoughts would you have? You've asked them to do something they're not doing, not working hard enough. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, disorganized. Slow. Okay, perfect. All right, amazing. Thank you so much. So when you are thinking they're not working hard enough, they're disorganized, they're slow, how do you feel about that team member? Probably feel a bit annoyed, frustrated. Yep. Resentful. Absolutely. All of those things. Now, this is where most of us, irritated, but it depends if they do a good job. Yeah. So this is where a lot of us go wrong as leaders. We feel angry, we feel annoyed, and we think that is the best time to go and speak to our employees. Because the action that you take when you're frustrated or angry or irritated is what? Because the way that we feel doesn't matter how good actors we are. None of us, even an Oscar winner cannot hide this. So the actions that you take will be speaking in a tone of voice that's not particularly great. You're very unempathetic. You may be, you may walk into the room in a really angry state, and then the result is, what would the result be? You're both annoyed. They're annoyed. Worst, yeah. They're annoyed because you haven't listened to them. You've upset a team member. The work's not going to get done. Okay. This is where the leadership training is so important. Rumors, yeah. Because what if all of us knew about this thought model, and we decided to use really intentional thoughts? Because what feeling do we want to have when a team member misses the deadline? You know what I think the most powerful one to have is curiosity. Yeah, how can I help? Curiosity. I think curiosity is one of the most beautiful emotions to have as a leader. Empathy is good too, but let's be honest, you're not going to have a lot of empathy if someone's going to miss deadlines. But if you go think curious and your thought is, wonder what happened. Why did that happen? You're going to have curious, you're going to be very curious about it. The action that you're going to take is what? You're going to ask for a meeting. You're going to open up, ask open questions. And the result is the team member is going to explain and it will get resolved. So, I mean, I could do 3 hours on this model. I don't have 3 hours, but I just really wanted to take a moment to explain this because this is so important. And this is the one thing that we are missing in leadership is looking at our own thoughts. Most of us are managing, if we're really honest, from unintentional thoughts. We're managing, and so we're not getting the right results from the team. And, you know, as someone who has worked in a really toxic work environment, which really knocked my confidence 7 years ago, this is why I set up the business, because it's not that there was something wrong with my boss. He just really did not understand how to manage people. And you spend more time at work than you do with your family members. I was seeing people at work more than I was seeing my young kids. You know, they were 2 and 1 at the time. And if we do not know how to create environments at work where we are being curious about each other, being empathetic, having all of the emotions, as a headhunter, I can tell you, ex-headhunter, your people will leave. You will get people who leave so often and they won't tell you it's because X, Y, and Z. It is really difficult to headhunt people who feel really good at work. I know that. 22 years, that's what I did. I could offer someone £1 million, they would not move. They loved their boss, and people love their boss who have a really good emotion towards them, who love them, who feel like I would do, like if you have a team that love you, they will do anything for you. And at the end of the day, that is what we want, because that is what's going to create more profit. So before we go into the archetypes of the different archetypes, because this will really help you to understand your staff, you've got to clean up your own thoughts. You have to clean up your own thoughts before you even start having these conversations with your team. Let me just go back to the presentation. Does anyone have any questions about this before I go further? Everyone feel they've got it? Yeah. If you do, just pop them in the chat. We are in this together. As I said, we went through the unintentional thoughts. We went into the thought model. And you know what I find so much is that when I go into companies and I train this, it really does blow managers' mind, because then they start using it, especially when we have the follow-up session. They're like, I felt like this. I looked at myself. They take radical responsibility for their own thoughts. And you can see the difference in the team. You can really see the difference in how the team's being managed. Okay, great. So yeah, you can't get your team to change if you haven't changed yourself. If you want your team, what about managing bad bosses who are not receptive? The first thing to do is look at your own thoughts about it. You have to look at the story that you're telling yourself about that bad boss. Have to look at your own thoughts about it. And if it's really that bad, then I'd have a conversation, but really look at your own thoughts. What is the story that you're telling yourself, and what are you making it mean about yourself? Thank you for that question, James. When you clean up your own thoughts, you stop reacting and you start responding. And that is the most impactful way to be at work, where you are responding to things and not reacting. And that takes maturity, that takes learning how to use your mind properly. And yeah, only then can you see. Okay, so it's to clean up your own thoughts, then you can clean up how you're going to react to your team, because your energy will speak before you. And I'm not talking like woo-woo energy. I'm talking if you are feeling angry and you're walking into a room, you don't even have to open your mouth and people will know. We always want to come from a place of curiosity, because we want to just open the conversation where people feel at ease. Like, Nobody wants to walk into a room with a really angry person. You're never going to get the best out of them. Okay, so let's look at the archetype. The archetype, as I said, it was from Carl Jung, who, you know, he was really an expert on human behavior. I am obsessed with human behavior and why we live the way we do. And most of the way that we live is run by our subconscious. And we have to be very, very careful about what we put into our conscious mind, because that is how we're feeding our subconscious. So let's have a look. So there's 8 archetypes. Now I do apologize. I've honored the titles that he's given in this book. And one of them can be quite triggering, and I am sorry for that, but I'm going to honor what he's called it. So there are each of us of these archetypes, you will recognize yourself in all of them. There are things where you're like, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. I've probably done all of them as well. But there's one that you will identify with a bit more. There's one which you'll say yes. And normally what happens is when we're under stress, it comes out the most. So the 8 archetypes, the shadow, the bit that is holding us back, the bit that we don't want to put light on, one of them is the prostitute. Again, I'm sorry if that triggers. I'm just honoring Carl Jung's work. And when the prostitute is in feel strong, they turn into the lover. When one archetype is a child, when they're strong, they turn into the sovereign, which is one of my favorite ones, sovereign. They've got the saboteur. When they're strong, they're magician. Now, the thing I love about this is that it shows us that just because one person is operating from the victim doesn't mean that they will stay the victim forever. As a leader and as someone who is managing people, you have the ability to turn that team member into a warrior. You really do. If you can understand and look out into what archetypes they're playing, you can change it. And I love this because it's not like, right, that's it, they're the victim, that's it. They always play the victim, they always feel sorry for themselves. It doesn't work like that. With the right training, with the right questioning, with the right feelings that you have about them, you can take them into the other. Just as I'm sure everyone on this call has played a victim once in their life. Doesn't mean you're a victim every single day, just means that on the other side, you get to be a warrior. You could be a saboteur, but on the other side, you get to be a magician. So I think I really love that about this, is that it shows us that you can see the best in people, even if they're showing you the worst, which is what you want for somebody who is managing you. You want everyone to believe in you. Okay, so let's start with the prostitute and the lover. So how did this work? So basically, the prostitute, if somebody is operating from the prostitute at work, what they're doing, and you will notice yourself in this or someone else, is they are prepared to sell their beliefs to be accepted. They're prepared to sell them their thoughts. You see this a lot with people in sales. I've done a lot of training for recruitment agencies, having been a recruiter myself. And these are the people who they'll be like, right, we're charging, instead of charging 15%, we're going to charge 20%. They really struggle and they go into these meetings and they undersell. You see this a lot in people in sales. If they're operating, if they don't have good self-belief, they're operating from the prostitute, they will do anything to be liked. And this is why it's so important to get curious about them. Like, people can come in and be like, I couldn't sell it, I offered a discount, or I offered more for the service, rather than being, why did can't believe you did that, now we're not going to make as much money. It's really looking into why. Did you not believe that you could get the sale? If you can work on their belief, this is the best way that you can manage these people. Not getting needs or not getting their needs or wants met, but they will do whatever it is to be part of the group. So they very much feel like they really undersell their greatness and they undersell their strengths. They're like, oh, no, I'm fine, I'm okay. In meetings, they might not speak up. They'll agree with everyone in the meeting, even though inside they're like, I actually really disagree with that. They really want to be included. And the thing is with these people is they just want to feel safe and they want to feel seen. So this is really good if you have hired someone recently and you've noticed that they're struggling to put their ideas forward, then to be seen, maybe if you and a boss take them out for lunch, spend some one-to-one time with them. This is a really good way to bring them out into the illuminated, which is the lover. What you'll see them, notice them saying is things like, I can't handle this emotionally. This is too much for me. They really compromise their self-security, and they are consumed with what people think of them. Now, I'm sure all of us have had moments of this in our life. And as we've grown older, or maybe still some of us still feel that we are in the prostitute archetype. The driving thing for this is lack of self-belief, that I'm not worthy and I'm not enough. And it's really difficult to be in a sales role if you feel like that. But you can come out of it. You can rewire it, and you can alchemize them into the lover. So what you do here is you really, when they are in the lover, what you want to do is you want to really connect them to what their hopes and wishes are. You don't want to undermine them, and you don't want to bargain with them. So when they are in the lover, they don't bargain. They're really good in sales because they really bring people in, and they will put everything on the line for their desires. Then you have someone like this working for you. If you get them to really buy into the business, they will put everything on the line for that business. They know their worth and they know their individual value. So they are very, very good in meetings when they're not in the prostitute archetype, when they're in the lover, of speaking up. They're passionate. They really see the beauty in everyone around them as well. And they do not, there's no apology for their existence. It's like, I'm here. They're very much like, these are our values, this is what I'll stick by. And they have this attitude of like, we can do it no matter what. I'm sure you've had people who've worked with you who've moved into these two, and that's what's happening. And the great thing is, when someone's in the lover archetype, they can create their own safety. And there are three things we desire, by the way, as human. We want to feel safe, we want to feel seen, and we want to feel heard. If you've got a really difficult employee, it's one of these three things. How can you see your team more? How can you hear them more? And how can you provide safety? Well, you can't do that if you can't provide it for yourself. But can you feel, how do you provide those things for yourself? Went off track, but I think it's important to say that. So this is how it shows up. We went through that. Sorry. So yes, they really feel compromised. And then now I want to go on to the next slide, which will show when you're leading them. So what they need from you, as we went, we need to show that it's okay for them to say no, and you'll still respect them. You need to encourage them, especially people who are in sales. Like, it's okay it's not okay to let this client down. It's okay that if you lose the deal because you've stuck to this price, I still respect you. I'm not gonna be acting like, it's really creating that sense of safety. You can stick to the price that you want and you'll still have a job. You really want them, you want to praise them. They want to be seen. They want to feel heard. They want to feel safe. And this is how you get out, asking their opinion. Someone's not talking in a meeting and you can tell, rather than just thinking, oh, what's wrong with them? It's really going up to them later and saying, I noticed you were a bit quiet, but I felt there was something that you wanted to say. What would you like to share? That is how you take someone out of the archetype. I mean, that is an incredible leader who can do that. When you learn about this and you really go into it, again, this is just a 1-hour workshop. I spend, sometimes I spend months talking through a company how to do this. What they get from their team is someone who they deemed as the most difficult team member. When they move into a different archetype, they become one of their best, either the best billers or the best person on the team, because the way that you are managing them, you're not managing their shadow, you're bringing them out into their illuminate side. It is one of the most incredible things to see. And yeah, okay, I think I've covered all of that. So let's go on to the next. The next is the child, and the sovereign is one of my favorite ones, because when you are in the child archetype, you're very much you're choosing to look at life like this. So you're very activated by other people's responsibility. You want other people to take responsibility for their actions. So they forced me, they made me, they put pressure on me. They're very codependent. They need permission for everything. And They feel like they're not looked after properly. They can be very resentful. They can be very bitter. They use the words of "it's not fair" a lot. And what they're really doing here is they're really covering up their vulnerability. They can tell lies as well, have a tantrum. Drop me a 1 in the chat if you have ever had a grown adult throw a tantrum, someone who's reported into you. I have definitely had people throw tantrums at me. Oh yeah, it happens. They're operating from the child. And I can tell you, when I was a recruiter, thanks Christina, thank you, Katie. When I was a recruiter, if I had to tell people that they weren't right for their job, wow. I mean, the tantrums that they threw. And, you know, I really felt for them, because I knew that with a bit of work, if I'd worked with them, I could get them out into the sovereign. But obviously, as a recruiter, that wasn't what I could do. But that's what the bit that I really loved, which is why I set up this business, so I can. So it's really, you know, when you are noticing people having tantrums, that is really when you can tell, rather than being like, God, what's wrong with this person? They're operating from the child shadow. With these people, if you can get them into the sovereign, they are incredible. Because what is better now, if we go into the sovereign is someone who takes full responsibility for their actions. They know how to make mistakes with grace. They have this real energy, like they're really self-led. Let's do it. They're really deeply connected to their own mission, and they're very proud of how they carry themselves. They're very passionate. They're very fiery. This is who I am. They feel powerful. So you can, as a leader, move people from playing the child into being sovereign, because unfortunately I have to go to another meeting. No worries, there is a recording, so you can watch the rest. You know, you can move them with the right leadership, with the right questions. So really what you're doing here is allowing them, understanding through their thoughts, what do they need to feel powerful again? If you want them to feel powerful, then you need to look at what thoughts they're having about themselves, about their business, about the client. Now, I'm not saying this way of managing is easy, but what I will say, it is the most effective, and it's the one that will bring you the most profit. Because when you manage like this, you are really managing people into their higher selves. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't have time for that. But that is what leaders are for, in my opinion. Leaders are there to bring the best out of people. Again, I will go back to saying we can't do that until we know how to do the best out of ourselves. But it's doable. I've seen it. I've worked with companies and, you know, spent months training them on this, and it has transformed people, transformed leaders, transformed the team, the culture, everything. So yeah, when they're in the child, they're really looking for safety. How can you make them feel safe? How can you give them more belief? What questions can you ask? What can you do? All of these things. So that's how you can take them in. So let's look at the we did the saboteur. Let's look at the saboteur. The saboteur is really, what they're doing is they will reflect the fear back to you. Like, I don't know, I'm stuck. They're very activated. Thank you, Vivian. No worry, you can watch the playback replay. They just do not feel like they're able to survive. So they don't like change. They really don't like change. So this is someone who, if you introduce a new policy, if somebody new comes into the team, if you change a manager, they are not going to like that. And all their reasons sound really valid. They're really good at explaining why things are not working for them. Like, they are experts on this. But really what's driving this is they think, what if I fail? And people who are really scared of change, the main driver is failure, because they want to protect themselves. And a lot of what they think of is like, a lot of the excuses that you will hear is, I don't have time. Maybe I can do this next week. They're just putting it off. They're just delaying. And they really feel misunderstood as well. And so if you want someone then to go into the magician, the magician is the person who has a really high energy. They just can make anything happen. They have this belief that I can make anything happen. And they're like, we are doing it no matter what. I am the creator of my own energy. I'm the creator of my own reality. They see the big picture. remind them of their magic. For people like this, what you need to do is you really need to remind them of that that spark that they have, that they are the ones who create things. When they say, I don't have time, you're like, you know how to create the time for this. What can I do to support you? What can I take off you? Because when they are illuminated as a magician, they are honestly the best people. You know, we've all got people in the team who can just make anything happen. It's them. And you really want to, with this one, is allow them to make friends with fear. And if you can teach, again, this goes back to you learning how to be comfortable with your own fear, but if you can teach an employee how to become really used to fear, they will be your biggest action takers, because most of the time, the only thing that is holding people back is fear. They're operating from their saboteur. The minute you can allow people, again, this is a whole nother workshop, but I think it's important to say, when you can teach people how to make fear their best friends, you will see action being taken. And when people are not scared of making mistakes, they take more action. They will end up with, at the end of the day, more profit. And I think it's one of the most beautiful things when you can watch a team do that. So they procrastinate. This is what they do, someone who's a big saboteur. Okay, so let's, in terms of how we said you need to make them safe, you want them to build momentum. Yeah, so things you can say to them is like, I've noticed you're hesitating. What's the fear behind that? Like, what are you afraid of? What's coming up for you? It's okay if you get it wrong. Like, this is how we grow. It's really this encouragement. So the last one I'm going to go through is the victim. I'm sorry if I've rushed through this. I'm just trying to really respect your time. So how do we play the victim? The victim is one that actually was my best friend. I loved to play the victim. I really did. So I know this one very, very well. And the victim would get very upset when they don't get what they want. They don't ask for it, but then they complain. And this is really, again, from low self-worth. So I don't want to ask for what I want. I'm not going to ask for my salary, but then my pay rise, but then when I don't get it, I'm very upset. They've really given up on empowering themselves. They have no self-leadership. They're very preoccupied with fairness. Again, you'll hear this is not fair. They're very catastrophic. Like, if this goes wrong, and then all of these other things that can go wrong. They take on too much and then they complain. The victim can also really show up as people pleasers. I am a recovered people pleaser. I know what it feels like. And they feel like the world is just not on their side. They feel very misunderstood. They can get very angry and they can blame a lot of people. Now, the great thing about this is when they go into their illumination, when you are able to allow them to feel better about themselves, they are super reliable. They're very resourceful. What you need to do here is remind them of their strengths and say, this is what I hired you for. You are great at this. This is what I put you in for. It's very people who are in victim mode, they're very somatic as well. So a really good thing here is to get them to go for a walk or go for a walk with them. Just shake it out their body, especially if you hold a lot of anger in your body. Doing some somatic, just walking. Go for coffee. Can we just go for coffee? Shall we just walk this out? Once they're in their warrior, these people are very, very heartfelt, and they use language like, I know I can do this. They're very clear on what they want, and they can really tap into their own power. There is nothing a warrior cannot do. When you can turn someone from a people pleaser to being comfortable with saying no, one of the most empowering things you can do for someone, because, you know, as a recovered people pleaser, you know, you end up really burnt out, you're very resentful, you do everything for everyone. And then when they learn to say no, they're very resourceful, they can do a lot. So really what you're doing here is what's one thing you can control here? This is a really good question to ask someone. What can you control? Because they feel life is so out of control. That's a really good question. What's the first small step forward? Get them to break things down. You really want to validate their feelings as well. So let's bring all of this together. Has anyone got any questions, by the way, or anything that they want to ask me? And I've been speaking for a long time. But if you bring this all together, really what we're doing is we're not labeling people here. What we're doing is trying to understand, why do people react the way they do when they're stressed? It's not because they're bad people. It's because, and they each have their own favorite archetype, because that's what feels familiar, that feels comfortable. But the great thing about this archetype, like I said, you know what other side they can go on. It's about that you're leading here, really. And I think the word missing from this slide is curiosity. When you can lead from curiosity, like, why are they not being able to sell in these meetings? Why are they taking too much on? Why are they saying yes for everything? Why do they keep saying everything's not fair? It will bring you back. I'm a senior executive assistant with managing two folks. How do I manage it? So really, it's with managing up, it's really managing your own emotions around them, because you can't manage them. You're not managing them directly. This is where I think self-leadership is really, really important. What about those who have multiple character traits, both child and victim? Then the thing with the child, there is a crossover. It's really about, with the child and with the victim, it's about allowing them to feel heard and understood. That is really, really important for them. And you'll see it in the booklet that I will give you after this. I've put it all out, questions to ask. But really, this is, how can you help them to feel more seen? How can you help them to feel more heard as well? I think that's a really, really good one. So you can really, thank you, I haven't done the meeting. No worries. Thank you, Natasha. You can really allow them to move from shadows to strength. And I really do think that this is the role of a leader. We are here to allow them to lead themselves. Again, we can only do that how we can lead ourselves. So what I would say to everyone is really have a look at the thought model that I've sent, practice it. The only way you can do this, if you can start practicing the thought model on yourself. How can you change your, I followed you on LinkedIn safely tomorrow. Oh, thank you so much. Good. Yes, do follow me. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Instagram. But yeah, you've got to be able to manage your own thoughts, your own emotions. And so practice it. That's the best thing you can do if you are managing people. If you're in a relationship, you know, the most important thing, I think, in life, the depths of our life, is through the depths of our relationships. And the deeper that you can have a relationship with yourself, the better relationships that you can have with the people around you, with the people that you manage, with the people that you're in a relationship with, to the people that you want to do business with. I think it's so important to really understand how we can change ourselves and have super, super self-awareness. Lead yourself first and then lead others. I'm here for a couple of moments before you have any questions. Please pop them in the chat. I just really want to thank everyone. I will come off out the slide. I just really want to thank everyone for your time today. I know how busy we all are, and you've been an absolutely great team. I've got a few moments for any questions. Let's have a look. Anything coming up? No, not so much. So yeah, thank you everyone so much. It's been an amazing workshop. You've all been so lovely, and I love these interactive workshops. So yeah, thank you very, very much. And yes, Helen, I am obsessed with people's characteristics, why we are the way we are. And I think the more that we can understand ourselves, the more that we can understand others. I think it's great. Thank you. Will there be a link for the module? Yes, I think, Mary, you're going to send them a link to the recording, right?
Sorry, let me just unmute. Yes, I'll send a link of the recording and then the follow-up documents as well.
They're quite in depth as well. I've put it all together for you. So thank you, everyone. As I said, I'm on Instagram if you'd like to follow me. Are we going to get a copy of the TAME? Yes, you are. I've put it all down. I've put all of everything that we've discussed. I've put it in a really nice booklet for you. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Great.
Sure. So before you go, does anyone have any questions that they want to ask Noona?
Not leader yet, but it's very insightful. Good. I'm sure you'll make a great leader one day. Oh, thank you, April. You're all very welcome. I really enjoyed this session.
Cool.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Noona, for joining us. And
Pleasure.
we hope that more people will join our next event as well. Thanks so much, guys.
Bye.
Bye.